Hi, everybody. Welcome to sunny Spirit Lake, Iowa. Tom Matuska and Brett Wingfield here for Matuska Taxidermy Supply Company, Thursday afternoon live. And hoping to bring you some fun things today and show you some new ideas. Busy day, busy week in the lakes area. We had walleye season continued. There's a lot of boats on the lake and a lot of nice walleyes being caught.
Yeah.
And your muskie season opened up.
Muskie season
Tell us about that.
Sunday, and it was hot, and it was sunny, and
You caught a stringer full.
not quite, but we did get a couple. So it's fun. It's good. It's nice to have the season open again, and it feels like summer finally. Get in the boat and spend some time on the water.
And this weekend will be Memorial Day, and that's always a busy day. Kind of starts off the summer here. Yeah. And our big time is from Memorial Day to Labor Day. After Labor Day, it's deserted, and before Memorial Day, it's kind of deserted around here, so it's going to heat up and get pretty busy.
And you're going to have to buy your groceries on Thursday.
Yeah, don't go to the grocery store Friday night.
No.
I find myself there many times, and I'll wonder why I did that.
Yep, have to get back into the routine.
It can get pretty busy here. And we talked to you last week quite a bit about what we're planning, and it's going to be, we called it the Alaska Project because we just have a lot of northern animals, big game, and we thought, why not just start at the beginning and work our way through them, and you're going to see a whole lot of different techniques. You're going to see several different animals. We're starting out with a caribou pedestal. We've got a caribou wall mount. Yeah. We have a moose, big bull moose pedestal. That'll be a big project. We have a life-size wolf. Yeah. A black bear and a grizzly bear.
A couple bears, yeah, nice. And I think those are pedestals.
Pedestals, maybe? Real nice pedestals. Yeah. So we've got a lot of fun projects, a lot of not normal things that many taxidermists don't encounter, very often. So it's nice to see how we attack them. We have to do any of these projects. We always kind of have to make a game plan and think your way through it. Most of these things, I always say we do 80% thinking about them and 20% mounting. The thought process that goes into them and the planning is actually a lot more than the actual mounting. So we're going to show you a lot of different things, and I think you'll have your own ideas. Don't be afraid to text in your questions. We'll answer your questions as we go here. And like and share, like and share, like and share. Yeah. Because at the end of this show, we're going to give you a 168 high resolution photos CD of Caribou reference by Phil Wilson. And these are some of the nicest caribou pictures you're ever going to have. A lot of close-ups, a lot of eye detail, a lot of ear detail, and you get it. And all you had to do is like and share, like and share. Yeah. Pretty good chance that you're going to win that. So this person, at the end of the show, we're going to announce who got that. So make sure that you like and share during this session for next week.
Yep. So the person that wins this week liked and shared last week. So be that person.
Kind of like payday.
It is, yeah.
You worked last week and you don't get paid for a couple weeks. Anyway, so make sure that you like and share. Don't forget to do that and show us the love and all the hearts and the balloons and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, the little bubbles. We haven't seen the bubbles in a while.
They used to come across our screen. We don't see that on a monitor anymore. I'm sure Kate can make it happen, but that's all right. All right, let's talk a little bit about the caribou. We have the choice. We can go to the cattle. It's a pedestal mount caribou. A little bit of habitat involved in it. You're going to have a pedestal rod assembly. We got to think our way through. We got to have the habitat planned out in our head. Pedestal, left turn pedestal. Yeah. It's going to be on a hickory base. But we could have gone and we could have ordered a pedestal caribou, but we carry trademark caribou, which are really, really a nice caribou to mount on, and it didn't take very long for you to alter that form today and make a pedestal out of it. Yeah. So we'll kind of walk you through that. We also have As we did the process, some of the process today, we started with just a slight left turn Caribou shoulder mount, and with our Sawzall and a few little screws began turning it, and we'll explain to you how we did that. We'll also have on the screen still photos of that we took as we went, so you'll get a pretty good idea of how we did it. But don't be afraid when you have to alter something. Start out, if you've never done it before, a lot of beginners, I remember altering my first projects. I was terrified, and I remember even after I'd been in the business for quite a while, and I told this story before, I got a muskox, which came probably from McKinsey, and it already was in 9 pieces, and I kind of screwed it all together and started cutting it apart, and I ended up with so many pieces, I had tears in my eyes because I had to explain to my wife how we're not going to be able to make house payment this month because the $900 that I paid for the muskox is going to take another $900 to get another one because I ruined this one. But you, diamonds are created from pressure, and a lot of pressure will make the project come together.
Words of wisdom, I like that. That should be on a t-shirt. I like that.
I don't think I said it quite right. Anyway, so we started out with a slight left turn, full shoulder trademark Caribou.
And we ordered it without a backboard.
We did, and you talked about that last week because many times we get the backboard in it and we have to cut it off, then we have to fasten it onto a mounting stand, and then we have to somehow put a board in it, then you can put it back onto a mounting stand. Yeah. So we'll kind of go through the process of how our thinking on that. You may have better ideas. Don't be afraid to text in your better ideas because if we try them and they work, we'll learn from you guys also. So anyway, do you want to explain to them what you started out with here and how we got to this point?
Sure. And like you said, I think we've got some photos. We're trying to work ahead a little bit, and so we took some pictures along the way just so nobody's lost. But this was, like Tom said, a slight left turn, pretty straight. Head was at about the same angle, so I'd call it a semi-sneak maybe. And we knew that we wanted to give it a little bit more of a graceful turn. Also, we changed the head angle just a little bit after we saw it go together. We talked last week about choosing the pedestal attachment, whether it was going to be a wood base, a hardwood base below it, or a short base with some sort of habitat. And I think we kind of settled on a height, and we have some options that we can show our customer for the final attachment. So we'll show you that too. But before we could do that, we had to get the mannequin somewhat posed in the position that we wanted it to be in to see what we would push up against it, whether we wanted to have a short base or a tall base. And so we made a few initial cuts. The first thing we did was we added to the back. So I don't know if you can see, but there is a foam seam right there. And this line is where the mannequin was originally. So everything beyond this was added foam. And to do that, I don't know if we have a picture of that, so I'll tell you. To do that, we just put tin here. You can use plastic, you could use pop box cardboard, any cardboard. A good tip is to, anytime you're using a damming material, use a mold release. We use paste wax sometimes.
Stuck to our foam before.
We have had Orange Crush on the side of a Caribou, Diet Coke. But no, we used a printer's tin. Shh, we don't have that here. No, but we add some sort of a damming material here. We flipped him up, pointed his nose down, put the back in the air, and then we just poured foam. And I think probably 6-8 weeks ago, maybe more, We showed them how to do that. We added the back, we did a pedestal attachment, we did some of those things. So we thought rather than redoing that, we would just quick explain it to you. So this is pretty cut and dry. Create a dam, let it rise. You can see there's probably a couple of pores here, one here, and then I think I added this little bit. So it took 3 good cup pours of foam to get enough here. And then we just kind of started making a line, and I think one of our first pictures that we have shows the expanded foam, the extended back, and then is that what they see our photo for us? There we go. So there's the foam extension. You can see there's a couple pores to get that much, and then we just had a blank canvas that we could kind of make a nice graceful curve to. We know a couple things. We know that we need to have enough shoulder. We're thinking we're gonna do a shoulder attachment with this. So we wanted to make sure that we left enough shoulder that we could have a good solid attachment. But we had a lot of cape, and that was one of the nice things. The outfitter left us plenty of cape, so we wanted to show the mass and a little bit more of the body. So we added, we gave it just a little artsy line there to kind of figure out about what we wanted from the first photo. And then I think we can go ahead and go through this next photos.
And that's not
I'll show you.
necessary either. You could do it with a flat back
Sure. Yeah,
Caribou
absolutely.
just straight from the store.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. We have you've got a lot of different options on what you want. We like to have some organic lines in our presentations, and so we choose to make a back like this, and we'll cover it with leather. That's another thing. Some people I've seen use rigid backing, like 1/4-inch melamine or MDF type board that they put on the back, and in that case it's harder to conform to these, but we'll Bondo this, and we've shown you that, and then we'll cover with leather. So our next picture, let's see where we are. You can see we've added the back, and now we've made some cuts, and we were trying to accomplish our turn. And anytime we do any alterations, the most accurate alterations are to follow the movement of the spine. And there are some people that can cut this whole neck piece away and cut the head away and put the head where they want it and leave the void, and put a plastic bag here and just pour foam and re-sculpt the neck completely. We usually choose to trust the sculptor that started with it as far as the anatomy, and we're just going to turn him naturally where the spine could turn. So in this case, we made one cut directly behind the neck, which was here. We made another about the mid-neck and one at the brisket, right in front of the brisket and shoulders here. So we know he can turn at that point. And we took a wedge out of one side, and we allowed it to expand on the other. And we'll show you by taking the wedge out here, we have a wedge on the other side. So if I can keep that in frame, you can zoom in on that. We'll show you the expansion here. Here, you can see this extra foam, and a little bit up in here. So you can see where it opened on that side, which, if I bring the Caribou back toward you, you can see we now have a pretty significant turn to him. By making those cuts, we just have a nice sweeping, graceful turn. We several times put the antlers up against him, tried to determine the viewing height. That's another important thing, is to try to establish your height. And by having him on a mounting stand, we can do that. Put him at the height that you want to ideally view him from. And then once you get your shoulders squared up, your neck in about the position that you're after, we like to add a level line, which we've done here. And that's just a reference point. And that can be very important coming back to later, because if your head angle changes slightly, Your shoulders will also be off, and as you go back and forth between the two, it can be a little bit frustrating trying to find your balance point. So we'll put a level line here on the opposite side and sometimes across the front too, just to have a few references. Once we got that far, we cut the head free. We did do a test fit. Gosh, I skipped the test fit part. We did a test fit first, made sure that everything fits. Please, please, please do that. If you take one thing away, don't spend a whole bunch of time on your alterations and then not have a good and not test fit him. Do your test fit first, at least to know what you're up against. We're not going to send this mannequin back whether he fit or not, but at least we would know if we had to change the size, and our size actually worked really well. Except when we test fit him, we did notice that we had a lot of skin up under the jaw. We may have a photo of that too.
The head?
Yeah, the head expansion. So while we were making the cuts and turns, we went ahead and took the head clear off so that we could add a wedge and make him deeper at the back of the bottom jaw. There you go. So we made a cut. After we took the head off, we made a cut on the bandsaw all the way down the length of the face, just about to his nose, just to make sure that we could get enough expansion. And so we extended the height below the eye about a ½ an inch. And we learned that from a good test fit. We had a lot of baggy skin up under here and just felt like that would accommodate that a little bit better, and kind of like the profile that it gave us too when it was all done. So we made that extension, and then with any alterations and any pedestal work, we've tacked everything back together. We've done a little bit of carving here to get our back shape, but we've left the head unattached. Oh, there's a good picture. Did you have that up, Kate? So that kind of shows the widening of the head too. There you can see it a little bit better. We just added a wedge of about a ½ an inch, and you can see we got that space at the back of the jaw, which helped a lot when we put our skin back on. So once we put that wedge in, we filled it with foam, and you can see our test fit there. After the wedge was added, we have a nice profile, nice Caribou profile, and again, reference pictures kind of show us that would be very appropriate. So we got through that part, but we left the head unattached just because we want to allow the final head position to be determined after we attach him permanently to his final resting place, whether it be on a branch or a rock or whatever a pedestal becomes. But this way we have a good idea of what he's going to look like. We can put antlers up, we can push him up against his proposed pedestal and see what he looks like from there. So while all of that was happening, all of the alterations and stuff, you worked with the first rendition of our pedestal. You want to show them that?
I can do that. Another thing, did you tell them about the board?
I didn't. You should.
At some point, since this didn't have a backboard in it, we do this on most of our pedestals. It's nice to mount them on a nice mounting stand, something really, really secure. So Brett took a perfectly cut piece of plywood that was fabricated for him and just recessed a spot for that. Auto body puttied it in. That will get foamed over. It'll all get covered, but for the time being, you can mount on that, and it's nice and stable.
Yeah. Yep. Prior to that, we had him skewered. Bob Fothery's attachment, there's a skewer, 3 or 4 skewer prongs that we had him pushed up against, and then we put him on that. But now that he's on the stand,
he needs to be on something. This is going to be. We have the choice of either a lower pedestal. Would you hand me that hexagon over there? And he needs to be on some kind of a platform to hold him, either on the floor, a tall one. We have a kudu here that has a big tall base, or we did a caribou a while back that had probably a 6-inch base on the floor,
Yeah.
like a platform. This will sit kind of like that. And then it'll have, this one's going to be hickory, so it'll have hickory border around it. But now we have to attach the caribou to the base by something. And we are always picking up, at a show, we kind of look at, there's nice pedestal pieces that you'll see. A lot of these driftwood people have some pretty special things that if you went out to try to find them, you're going to look a long time to find something that's going to work. But we had, we kind of have a pile of some, so we took this one, and this is nothing but just kind of a snaggly piece of juniper, cedar, and it's got some twists in it, and I think it would make some nice habitat. We cut it off at the bottom. We took a small little pad. This is going to be attached eventually to our hexagon. And then if that all fits together, we will do the pedestal rod into the shoulder of the caribou so that he slides on and off. We like to do, I don't know if you can see down at the bottom of this one, we have a small pad, probably about maybe a foot long by 8 inches wide. And I like to have something like that, which is going to attach to that, because if you have to tilt this one way or the other, it's very easy to do it with a little bit of Bondo or a shim or something, so you don't have to make your base crooked or put your caster 1/4 inch piece of plywood under one caster or something like that. It's a neat way to do it. The whole base is all going to be covered with foam. You're not going to see that. So this is going to attach to his ball joint of his shoulder. It's going to give a little bit of contour up above. We talked about elements before. Anytime we do a project like this, the more elements you have, the more interest you have. So we're going to have a really pretty elegant hickory base that's going to be beautifully kind of polished and fine woodwork. It's going to have some habitat and some muskeg and tundra around the base, maybe some grasses coming up into this piece. And you've seen before, what did we, we've done a couple deer, I think, pedestal rods, correct?
Yep. Yep, I think we showed them that a few months ago.
And we've done it a few times. This is a tubular steel, and there's this is probably going to go up into our caribou. We prefer anytime we do a pedestal mount not to have the rod sticking out of the animal. That bothers me when the customer takes it home with a rod. I would rather have a little square hole in it, I guess. But this will be embedded up into the caribou on the backside. We'll probably cut it off a little bit, and then there will be a square stock. The part that we cut off can probably be used to come out of the wood at the right angle. So if you look back in the archives on the pedestal rod attachment, you can see how we did that. When you get that all done, invariably something's not straight, and his, maybe his shoulders are really, really straight and his head is a little bit off. So Brett, in his infinite wisdom, has not attached the head yet. And we do that on purpose because once this is all set up, pedestal rod works just like clockwork. Everything is beautiful, except look at that crooked head. All we have to do is take our screws out, move that head nice and straight, screw him back in, attach him. It's one of our better adventures, things that we do.
Jim Karczewski would like to know, what will you cover the back of the pedestal with?
We've done a lot of different things. Some people use, we have habitat rock. Some people make some really neat, rustic rock on the back. You can free form it if you want to. We did a Cape Buffalo with a really neat textured finish and an African scene back there. you know, just a matter of getting creative. Mostly with our deer and animals like this, we use a lot of leather. And we'll make this really, really smooth before this animal gets mounted. Does that one have it yet?
No, that one was a foamed one, but this one does.
And we take auto body putty and we put a thin 1/8 inch coating of auto body putty on the back like that big whitetail, and then rasp it down really smooth, make it smooth before it sets up, and then rasp it and sand it. And then that covered with contact cement and your sheet of leather with contact cement. We make a pattern out of paper, cut it out as close as we can, and then place it on there. So we do use a lot of leather. Customers seem to like leather. We have really nice deer pieces, which I think are faw leather that
Those
have
are very nice.
wildlife scenes like
Yeah.
bucks and does that people like. There's no rights or wrongs. Kind of look at a lot of pictures and see what catches your eye. I always say I was at a show one time and they had this hollowed out back here on a half life-size deer, and I think they had a little skunk family in there. and things.
Skunks.
People get really, really creative.
Seen
But for our
waterfalls.
purposes, this is going to be leather.
I mean, that's something that you have to charge accordingly for too. That's
What's a sheet of leather these days?
a lot. I don't know.
You're going to have to spend $100 on a piece of leather, and
I
then
bet.
you're going to cut half of it away.
Yeah, I bet it's expensive. But a family of mounted skunks in the back of there too. That's
That'd be
gonna be expensive too.
And then we'll show you when we do the back. When we do a full shoulder mount, typically, oftentimes we wrap the skin around, we staple it neatly all the way around, you know, so it's nice and fastened. With our pedestal mounts, typically we will glue this really good with a good hide paste, bring it straight off the back, put some carding to hold it tight to the form. This will all have to be roughed up, and we let it dry that way. And then we take a scalpel, really careful, don't cut your hair, and we will carefully cut that hair after it's dried and stable. Don't do it while it's still dampish, because then your skin's going to shrink more and recede past the edge of the form, and then you're going to be in big trouble. Then you're going to have to really soften it up and with the pliers pull it back over. But we'll let the skin glue to the edge of the form, and then we will trim it after it's dry, and the leather will stop right here. The hair or fur will continue past the back of the form and cover your leather edge, which works good, looks nice. Lots of ways to do that. Tons and tons of different ways. So probably off the screen, since you've seen it so many times, we will put a pedestal rod in here for next week, I think. Probably attach him to the ball joint. And there's no right or wrong place to attach your pedestal rods. Many people do it right dead center out of the brisket. We do it often. You can do it off of a leg stub. It's kind of classy and inconspicuous if you do it off the shoulder like we're going to do on this one. I think the last one we did we do it off of the brisket on something?
Yes, yeah. Our deer, we've got a brisket attachment. I think we showed them, but we talked about doing
And there's
the
not a
shoulder.
right or wrong. It's just kind of what you like and what heights. This branch, we tilted it quite a bit, and the idea there, it's kind of coming at an angle. The idea there is that the hexagon base is going to be centered under the caribou. So we're going to adjust this on that hexagon base so that the hexagon platform actually sits balanced right underneath the caribou's brisket. And we'll want him about this height. If you're doing, you'll notice that game heads like this are going to look much bigger and much more realistic if they're eye level to his face. If we had him really low and people walk up to him and they look down on the top of their head and they say, oh, that's a caribou, huh? Rather than they look at him at eye level and they go, wow. You know, I think we mentioned that last week too. The wolf, when we do the wolf, we're going to get him up kind of eye level. The moose, we want his face eye level. He's going to look like a monstrous animal rather than looking down on him. So we try to get this part of the animal, you know, up in the viewer's face. So that's the pedestal idea. And that will, as we go, we'll probably take some of the little snapshot pictures to show how we ended up progressing on the pedestal. And also like the attachment, we'll show you that. And pretty soon we're going to be mounting this, so we'll have everybody seen eyes and ears mounted, but we might go over that one more time, and antlers and that sort of thing.
And that got us through where the form is today. We off camera prepped the hide, which everybody's probably seen that a half a dozen times. We split ears, thinned lips, sewed up battle scars, sewed up bullet holes, did all of the repairs. This cape was in really nice shape. You'll see when we get him put together. He was really, really pretty. But we did have some work. We did that part off camera. And now we have 2 halves.
Oh, of the horns, yes.
Antlers laying here.
Okay, now these were freeze dried.
Uh-oh.
These were
That's mine.
freeze dried, and a lot of different ways to preserve antlers. Velvet. There's people that soak them in alcohol, methanol, different solvents. There's antler and velvet preservative.
Yeah.
There's Velvetan. There's different kind of products. If we have the choice, a lot of times like to have them freeze dried. I mentioned that to the hunter when he got the caribou, and he said they do that up here in Alaska, so you never know who he's dealing with. But he said, yep, they can do it, okay. And they came back really nice.
They are beautiful.
They don't, parts of them do not look as good as we would like. And Brett the other day just took, a little brush and brushed them and got the velvet to stand up. And you could do it with compressed air or whatever. It makes it look really, really nice. And so these are freeze-dried.
Just like grooming the animal, just a little bit of attention to these will make a big difference.
Yep. So they were split so that he could get them back on the plane. And they took a saw and they cut right down the center. So they got to be attached. Now there's a lot of different ways to do that. And we've done a lot that worked well and some that didn't work so well. You could trim this up so it fits onto the caribou's head, and you can screw them on just like you would a whitetail. 2 halves, only you'd have 2 halves. Problem that I see is there's a lot of leverage on those big horns, and screws and bondo and however you attach them. It's going to hold, but I'm even worried about him getting home. So what I would like to do first is attach the 2 halves together. We have more skull than we actually need, and then the form gives you, if you look over here, this bone actually starts probably 1.5 inches behind the eye socket. So here's my eye socket, and they're only giving you, look how far, 1.5 inches behind that eye socket puts it up to the burr.
Yeah, right to the burr.
And that gives me no bone to hold this together. So I don't think very many of you are old enough to remember this, but the olden forms used to have flat tops. And a flat top form, we called them just generically, didn't have the top of the eye on it in paper in those days. It was flat. It was cut straight off flat. Taxidermists would take their skull caps and they would cut through the eye orbits and cut the whole skull cap off flat.
Yep.
Then they used the bone from the skull to shape, because it was the real shape, the top of the snout.
Yeah.
And so what they didn't know up here and wouldn't have to guess, the bone took care of it.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of clay to blend it in, and it worked pretty good. After foam was kind of came into existence and sculptors got a little bit fancier and things like that, they started
Dinosaurs
trimming
went
up the
extinct.
bone and not leaving as much bone, that type of thing. But for this purpose, because we don't want to cut so much bone away to weaken this whole affair, we're going to leave that on
Yeah.
and trim it up. And then when we mount these horns onto this form, we're going to take a Sawzall and we're going to cut right through that eye, get rid of that
Yeah.
weak foam, and we're going to let the
Have
bone,
the whole bone.
take care of
Yeah.
it and hold it together.
Yeah. That will be nice and sturdy. Make sure it'll travel.
So to start with, while Brett was doing the fun stuff today and
Getting all
working with
itchy and
foam,
foamy.
I was using a cut-saw bit. Now, when they freeze-dried this Caribou's antlers, the skull was not cleaned up at all. They, you know, a lot of times people will boil it or they'll bug clean it or whatever however they want to clean it. But this had a whole lot of jerky attached to it, and it had to be cleaned up, or this customer's going to get a bug in his skull, and it's going to start there, and it's going to go to here. It's going to get your velvet. So we had to clean them up. So with a knife and tools and scrapers, a cut-saw bit on the Dremel, I cleaned as much of the tissue off of there as I can. The next step would be, once we get them together, we're going to really douse this with some kind of bug proofer. We will use Protex Pre-Soak as our choice. We use a lot of Protex Pre-Soak to permeate this with something that a bug won't eat. Because if you get bugs into this, and there's a lot of tissue on here, they're going to get into your animal.
Yeah.
So that's real important.
And worth noting too, you clean this up dry with a tool rather than soak it, just because of
I didn't want to lose the velvet, and that's why they couldn't cook this either. You cook it, and either steam or boiling water is going to destroy this velvet. And this velvet is, I mean, we've had a lot of stuff freeze-dried, and this is pretty nice velvet.
It's very nice.
Stayed on real nice. Okay, so the first thing, not a right or a wrong, it's just what kind of I think is going to work for us. The first thing, I want to attach one side of the antler skull plate to the other side of the antler skull plate. So to do that, I made some holes, and if you can see these holes, I've got 3 of them. Now I do not have very heavy bone, so where I had heavy bone, I put a thicker hole, bigger hole, okay? And then up in here, I don't have that thick a bone, so I kept my drill bit smaller. I'm still gonna put a wire in there. And then down in the front, I had just a little bit of hole here, and I made a little hole, and I'm gonna wire that together, just twist it so it gives you a little bit of, keeps it from falling apart while it's drying.
And just because it's kind of hard to tell when they're zoomed in, where you were showing your holes, that's on the center line of the skull. That's where it's split.
And something else, this isn't all we're gonna do to this skull to make it stay on here nice and strong. I wanna have a rod like this, 3/8.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to drill a hole up into this main beam, and I'm gonna bend this, a piece of this ready rod, so that it comes down and extends past the skull probably 2 to 3 inches, and it's gonna go through my skull plate, through my piece of plywood in the head. So we'll show you that next week, because we gotta glue these together first. But then on each side, out of the main beam, this is gonna go up into here maybe 3 inches, bend at a right angle, and I'm gonna have a little bit of ready rod epoxied up into here that'll stick down and go through my wood block 2 to 3 inches. It's the strongest, most secure attachment for fastening antlers on that you're ever gonna get. They're never gonna come off, so don't mess this up. It's kind of a, practice on something before you do it.
Yep.
So I got 3 holes here, and they line up to 3 holes on that side. The way I did that was I took a small back end of a paintbrush, just some kind of a applicator. I dipped it in red paint, and where I saw I wanted to drill a hole in the thickest bone I had, I just put a little dot, a little dot, little dot. Brett helped me. We held those together, lined them up the best we can, put them together like this, just like a little rubber stamp, pulled them apart. I had 3 red dots on this side. I had 3 red dots on that side. So that shows me where to drill. Now, the reason I was telling you about the ready rod coming out of the main beam, I didn't want to make any holes or any connectors that are going to interfere with this. So I watched where my rod's going to come out of here and made sure I didn't put a hole or ready rod through there.
Yep.
So where I have a thick enough hole, I took a piece of little ready rod, 3/8.
Maybe even a little smaller.
And I took that and I bent it, stuck it in here, tested it to go in there. It worked to connect the two. Up in here, I do not have room for that. So I used a little piece of heavy, I don't know, 8-gauge wire, which is going to go up in here. And each time I put these together, then I would test them with the other piece. Test them, pull them apart, test them, pull them apart. If you do this wrong, you're going to get them folded together. If you do it the other way, you're going to have them falling apart. So that was kind of important. This piece up here, I'm just going to take a little wire and I'm going to stick it through both sides, and I'm just going to twist it together at the bottom. Okay, let me, I didn't get the wire. Let me go grab a piece of wire, a little wire.
And you're just going to get a little piece of annealed wire? Is
Yeah,
that
and it's just going to be to
just
tie it together.
Something light, easily bent, that we can secure those, just the front corner together while it's setting up.
Holly says, hi guys, great to see you before the night shift.
I bet that was what we heard a few minutes ago. Hi, Holly. Holly's home from bear hunting in Canada. She's excited to watch, I bet.
Okay, now to connect this together, we're going to use Gorilla Glue 5-minute epoxy, just from the hardware store.
Worth noting, 5 minutes is not cured in 5 minutes. It's you got about 5 minutes of working time, but you better have a steady hand or a good clamp or something, because it'll be an hour before it's very hard.
That's why we're going to clamp them together and set them and forget them, and we'll come in the morning and hopefully they will be glued together. If they're not, hopefully you can get them back apart, so you're not half in and half out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up the Gorilla Glue. I'm going to put it in, I like to put it in a little curved tip syringe. I'm going to inject it into here. I'll probably smear some on my ready rod. Also, you notice on this one, I took the wire cutters and I put a whole bunch of little crunches in it, just something for the glue to stick
Yeah,
to.
I saw that.
Now this is not what's going to really hold our antlers together. I hope it does, but also the big connection is going to be this one, which will come later.
Which we'll do later, yeah. And the fiberglass underneath that we will do later too. We're going to go overboard to make sure.
We'll
that these
fiberglass that on the inside too, yeah.
Yep.
Are we ready?
I think so.
This is no redos, you know.
This is video. We can edit anything. Kate's a wizard. We got another caribou we can fake in there if we have to. Not quite as furry though.
And like Brett said, 5-minute epoxy is not 5-minute epoxy. It's a slow setup time. How come it smells so bad? It smells
I don't know. You find
like
that
a
out.
cat.
Yeah, it smells like something the cat did.
Okay, I'm going to just smear a little on here. On one side only. Now, I will get it all over everywhere. I'll try to keep it off of the velvet best I can.
Make sure your lacquer thinner and your paper towels are close at hand, just in case.
That was a hint for me.
But that is true. Being prepared for this is kind of very, very important. Make sure that you have all of your things in place before you start mixing. That way there's no panic. This goes together really easily and no hurry until something goes wrong. So if something goes wrong, then it's panic time. But as long as you have all your ducks in a row, it should go real easy.
Okay, now I'm just going to put it in 2 holes. The other one's just going to be a wire. I'm going to test fit it and see what comes out. Can take a little more.
And your holes are slightly oversized. I'm assuming just to allow some play for alignment.
I didn't want to have to force them in. There, it's coming out real nice.
There you
I didn't want to have to pound them in or force them in, was my thinking. Now I did notice as I was drilling my holes, I could see sunlight through my skull. So I want to keep an eye that it doesn't run on my velvet. This one filled up better.
Corey Williams says, hi, guys.
Corey Williams. Holy cow,
That's
that's been a while.
Nebraska Corey Williams.
Yep. Yep. Crocs.
Yeah. Okay. Keep the keep the epoxy away from your horns. Okay, ready for that one?
Yeah.
I'm going to put a little bit on this side. Now I will run a whole bunch of extra. After we get it glued together, I'll run a whole bunch of extra down the seam. And I'm going to just let that fall right onto the paper on the table.
Do you want me to inject some in here?
Oh yeah.
Just gonna put a little bit in. Looks like you've got a pretty good amount on the rod. I think I got a little extra.
Now I'm thinking,
Ooh, it's getting warm.
that means go.
I think so.
Okay. Let's see. Line it up like that.
Sure. Ooh, where's the... We got a little...
Tip yours down
Yeah.
low.
Twist a little bit.
Hand me your clamp and see if
Yep.
I can. The rubbered one. Yeah. Maybe we've got a bunch in there. It's going to be a widespread curve.
Might just be that angle a little bit.
Okay, let me pull it out. Can't be spreading. Can't be setting up. Here we go. All right, do it again.
There you go.
I think it is setting up in there. Can you
Is it
tighten
getting
this
firm?
one up?
Yeah.
Please? 5 minutes is 5 minutes.
In this case,
going.
Oh, I see it's pushing a little bit of glue out the back side here. There it goes.
It'll be a little wider than what he was.
A little bit. Now, can you twist that front, maybe? Can you put your twister on the... There you go.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. There we go. While you do that, I'm going to tighten down here.
Okay, now hand this on there. I'm going to hold it while you put one on the front. Like my little rubber pad that I
see
replaced.
That. Fancy.
Okay, now can we get one more crank on the back maybe? I'm not sure.
Ready?
Yep. This is definitely a two-man job.
If I pull, can I go this way?
Oh yeah.
Oh. No?
Come on.
I don't know. There we go. I think that tightened up quite a bit though. Maybe tighten that front squeeze.
Here, let me turn it your way. You can get a better grip
Yep.
of it. Oh, that went
Pretty
together really good.
Yeah. I think that's pretty good up in the front.
Okay, let's stick it on here, and I'm going to drizzle some in between. Good. Now turn him around, maybe.
I think he wants to. Yeah, I think I might. Let me see if I can reach over and pull your tops together a little bit like that. Help?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, didn't get my wire on the front, but I don't think we need it right now.
I think we're good.
Good?
Yeah. I think. Do you want to put some in the gap? Just a little squirt in the gap.
I'm going to have to get another container. Now, hopefully, I think our 5-minute epoxy started setting up before it got in.
Did you have a question?
I do actually.
Oh.
Julie Spencer would like to know if Bondo with fiberglass, does it not hold because of the weight?
Bondo and fiberglass would work pretty good. It doesn't get in the holes quite as easily just because of the fiber component. Epoxy is a little easier to inject, but that would be, Bondo and fiberglass would be a good alternative for the bottom side.
For the inside.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
That's it.
I think it's going to want to spread. I might grab our
Bungee cord?
bungee cord. Yeah.
I can get them for you.
There's
No,
one,
I better not. This is going to set up.
There's right behind Jill, hanging on the paint cap. There we go. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, now on the inside, after this sets up, tomorrow, we would take, you want me to hold that for you?
Got it.
Tomorrow we will take Bondo and fiberglass would be okay. Straight fiberglass and fiberglass mat on the inside would be good. You waiting for me?
Mm-hmm. I don't want to wrap you into the antlers. You're going to have to stay here overnight. Kate was kind enough to bring us that bungee cord.
got
I bet
it.
if we just lightly hook them together, we'll be.
Your crack is pretty decent here.
Thanks.
I didn't mean to get personal.
Thanks, Tom. Too much pressure?
No, perfect.
Um,
Okay, not any more than that, probably.
We've said many times this bungee cord is like having a third set of hands.
We use it a lot.
We do. We use it an awful lot. How's that?
Okay, now will they stay?
Ta-da.
Okay, now, don't slam the door for a little bit. Yeah, that's
going fast. Well, and it's worth noting too, it's warm in here this afternoon, and I bet that makes a pretty big difference from.
Ooh, that's stressful. Okay, so that's going to get set up. Tomorrow we're going to take auto body putty and resin would be fine, a little bit of chopped mat in there, or we like to also rough it up on the inside, fiberglass that.
Yeah.
Something that we can cut with the Sawzall. We will cut that to fit this, but we're going to cut through here and take the top of the eye orbit off because we have the eye orbits on the bone.
Yep.
And that's all strong bone holding it together, which is going to be stronger than our foam. Then we'll put the threaded rods, we'll cut those, and epoxy those up into the main beam.
Yep.
And then a lot of times to put them down, we'll drill oversized holes, like I'm going to say half-inch holes, or maybe even more, like 3/4 inch holes, something so we got a lot of wiggle room. We do fill that full of auto body putty and resin. And if you want to cut up some mat in there is good. Make sure you test fit that the antlers go, mark them so they're going to index where you want them to go, because they're not coming off. Then these will be epoxied, little right angles epoxied coming out of your main beams. We'll fill the holes in the void that we drill with auto body putty resin, and with a little bit of help, somebody to eyeball it for you while you hold, we're going to stick them down in, let it set up, and then we will build any gap or union or conform the skull plate to the mannequin.
Yep.
And they'll be on forever and ever and ever.
Ever and ever.
These matched up really nice with your tips, just looking at your tips.
Yeah, I think it did well. It did real good.
Good. That's a big job.
That is a big job. I'm glad we got it done.
I would have been re-drilling.
On live.
Yeah.
All right. Next week, we're going to kind of proceed on this. We'll probably have the pedestal rod, like I mentioned earlier, attached into the wood. We might explain it to you, and we'll have some little photographs like we had today. We'll kind of walk you through it, but we've had other sessions where we've showed you how to do that. We will also maybe have these at least ready to put on so
Sure.
they can see.
Yeah.
And we'll show you how the rods are going to come out and what we do for holes in there. Maybe show you the flat top, how
Yeah.
that's going to work. It's going to be a little bit of sculpting to blend it into here, but it's going to be what that animal really was.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're going to be out next week.
Oh.
So
Get to do it all yourself.
I get to do it by myself.
You get to glue the
Or-
antlers together. If they don't hold, they're gonna break apart. You'll have to put them together by yourself.
Yeah.
All right, and we have a winner probably for the Caribou 168 photos. Phil Wilson, exceptional photography, and he's going to get somebody's going to get a really nice set of reference pictures, and that winner is
Kevin Heinley.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Congratulations! You're going to put them to good use. It's a good item to win.
Make sure to like and share this video right now to automatically be entered into next week's giveaway.
Okay.
And have a happy Memorial Day weekend. And
That's
stay
right.
tuned as we will be having a sale for this special
A
weekend.
sale.
Yes.
Sale. And are we closed on Monday?
Yes, we will be closed on Monday. Our office will, but you can order online or through our app 24/7. So
Good job. Okay.
have a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend.